Hello and welcome back to the DriveTribe podcast run by the editorial team here at DriveTribe. It's quite a big week in the world of car news. We've got some nonsense from Elon Musk. We've got a very expensive new BMW with not quite enough seats. But most importantly, we're joined by Lucy, who runs most of DriveTribe and deals with Clarkson, Hammond and May. So we're going to be hearing from her. Yeah, it's going to be quite a good one, this. Let's get going. That's a 10 out of 10, Rachel. I'm pretty sure.
I'd say like an 8.5, 9, but you did well. I'm proud.
Did pretty well. I managed to get in just before it ended. So yeah, welcome back again. Thank you all for watching and listening in your thousands. It's been a fun, joyous thing to do again. It's been a nice break from the misery of day-to-day life where every day is the same, every week is the same, and every year is the same. And the same is just not a very nice, samey thing. Anyway, I hope you're keeping safe. Hope everything is reasonably okay. I hope lots of you have had needles in your arms, though it's only old people that have had that at the moment, I think. So I'm not talking about heroin, Rachel. I'm talking...
Okay. I was also going to say, how many over 80 listeners do you reckon the DriveTribe podcast has?
I don't know. I reckon we over-index for octogenarians because, you know, old people always liked me. My time working in Marks and Spencer's menswear department showed me that. That's what I did before motoring journalism. Anyway, yes, I'm Tim, as normal. Rachel. I think you're still Rachel.
Just about
Still Rachel.
Yeah.
And we are joined by the force of nature that is DriveTribe's chief marketing person. Is that right? Lucy Brown.
Hello. No, that is wrong. No one ever gets my title right. I am marketing director. It's not that hard, so I don't know why people get confused, but they do.
Marketing director kind of undersells what Lucy does at DriveTribe.
Yes, considerably.
Just by quite a lot. That sounds really dry. Not only does she manage the entire social media team and the video stuff that we do, she also has the hardest job at DriveTribe of managing three old men who co-founded the company, Jeremy Clarkson, Rich and James May. Sorry, not old. They're all youthful-ish. So we're going to get onto Lucy's tales of working with the three guys. But before we get into that, as is traditional on the DriveTribe podcast, it's time for the news. So there's been plenty of car news. It feels like the world of cars has kind of awoken from its slumber in a cave somewhere. And we've just been having new cars coming thick and fast, new motorbikes as well. Going to rattle through it so we can get onto the juicy stuff. But first up, new Bmw M5cs. This is, well, if you know what BMW M5 is, it's their performance saloon. It's always been an icon, a kind of a byword for fast, practical cars that aren't estates. And there's a new one this week. And it's been getting a bit of a mixed reception. Have you seen this, Rachel? It's not been going down that well.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Like I'm really intrigued to know what you think is the target market, and do you see any point in it? Straight in there.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. So the M5 is obviously it's a saloon car that you're probably not going to take on track. It's just for crossing countries at great speed. And this new one, the CS, they've done some weight saving of 70 kilos,
Which is significant.
But it's still 2 tons and probably a bit more. It's up to 635 horsepower. It's got the same 4.4 litre V8 as in the normal M5 Competition, just turned up a bit. Someone told me that the power figure is actually like 636 or something, and that is one less than the McLaren F1 BMW engine, and they've done that deliberately so they didn't make it the most powerful BMW engine or something. Anyway, 0 to 62 miles an hour is 3 seconds. It's green. At least in all the press shots, it's green and it's got bronze wheels. Looks really cool. And it's got little orange daytime running lights on the front. So it looks like a cool old German car. And it's got 4 bucket seats. So it's not that practical anymore. So it's still heavy and it can only carry 4 people. So it's a bit less practical. And it's £141,000.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Do you not think the combination of, I mean, I kind of love the green and gold combo,
Yeah.
but then I feel like throwing in the yellow headlight accents and the red brake calipers is maybe just a little step too far.
I can't talk about style, obviously. I'm wearing a t-shirt that's designed to look like papyrus.
Excellent.
Yeah, I just the problem I have with it is it's only got 4 seats and it's crazy expensive, and it's not much lighter than an
4
M5
seats
competition.
with the outline of the Nürburgring on the headrests.
Oh God! Imagine having to explain that to someone that's not into cars. It's just like, I don't know, if you went on a date, that classic thing, and you had to explain that to a bloke that you're picking up on a date, or a girl, they'd just leave you immediately, wouldn't they? I don't know. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Funnily enough, we're having to rush this podcast because I've got a BMW M5 competition coming in 45 minutes to my house, and that's £120,000, the one that I've got coming. And it's like, when did these cars get so expensive? Like, second hand, you could easily go and buy a McLaren 600 LT for that. Obviously, it's a completely different car, but just for context, it's insane. But anyway, enough about that. I want to talk about a motorbike next very quickly. I know lots of you do ride motorbikes, and the people that listen to podcasts tend to like motorbike bits. There's a new Triumph Speed Triple out. This is big news. If you're not into bikes, basically a Triumph Speed Triple was in 1994 when it first came out, the first what they called factory street fighter, because you have to have weird words to describe things in the motorbike world. It was a naked bike. There's another one. Basically, it was a sports bike without a fairing with straight handlebars. So it was upright, comfortable, and still had a very powerful engine. There's a new one coming out, and it's big because it's an all-new frame, it's an all-new engine, and Triumph hasn't done an all-new engine really for decades. It's got 180 horsepower, which for context is a lot, and it costs £15,000. For context, that's quite a bit cheaper than all the other bikes in this class, like the KTM Super Duke and the Aprilia Touring OV4. So yeah, it's really good. It's really exciting. It's coming out in the next couple of months. Hopefully I'll get to ride one soon. It's a bit like Ford suddenly coming out with a Ford Focus RS with 500 horsepower and selling it for Ford Fiesta ST money. It's that kind of thing. So, hey, get excited for that. Right, done with motorbikes.
That was a good bit of context, though. I liked that.
Thank you. I'm just trying to,
I understand now.
Not everyone's a bikey person, so I'm just trying to put it in context. American news delivered by a plummy British person. I run, obviously, at DriveTribe, run the website. We get lots of spy shots sent in to us by a photographer, a German kind of agency that has men situated outside test tracks all over the world. And they send us photos of camouflaged cars, which is obviously stuff that's coming out in the next couple of years. All very exciting. One this week. It's definitely not exciting, but I thought it was interesting. The Ford F-150 is obviously the biggest selling pickup truck car / anything in America. And they're testing a new one, and it looks exactly like a normal Ford F-150, except it's got signs stuck to the outside of it with magnets. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So what this is, in 2015, the F-150, new F-150 apparently came out, and they'd changed from steel to aluminium body panels, and loads of little businesses were suddenly annoyed because they couldn't stick their company signs to the trucks. Apparently that's quite common in America, instead of wrapping trucks. And therefore they had no way of affixing their branding to the F-150. So apparently Ford is testing this truck with a new type of paint that magnets can stick to. Isn't that really exciting news?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was cool.
It's just one of those things that yeah. Sorry, Luce.
That's been around for ages, the magnetic paint. I had it on my wall as a child to put signs and stuff up.
Yeah.
You're a pioneer.
You should go and work for Ford as an engineer. Did you ever have that blackboard paint that you turned any wall into a blackboard?
I had all the paint: blackboard paint, magnetic paint, whiteboard paint, which turned out to be normal paint, and I got yelled at for drawing on it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm discovering all this because the room I'm sitting in at the moment is in a couple of weeks going to become my daughter's bedroom rather than my spare bedroom for doing podcasting. And my girlfriend's gone out and bought stuff to decorate it, and she's ticked so many of the cliche child's bedroom boxes, including those little glow in the dark stars that you put on the ceiling.
I did have
anyone
those.
have those?
I loved those.
And they always stop working after a while, and they're just there and they go yellow and manky. So I'm looking forward to peeling those off when we move house in 25 years time, when I can afford to. Anyway, last bit of news is a very big bit of news. It's Elon Musk, the classic, has introduced through Tesla an updated version of the Model S and the Model X as well, but mostly Model S got big changes. It's the first major visual update the Model S has had since it came out in 2012. 2012!
It was 2012.
9 years old. I know it got a new front end, 2014, something like that, but this is the first major overhaul of it. It's a bit smoother, slightly different on the outside, but it's the interior and the powertrain where they've made huge changes. So there's this new 520-mile range option, the plaid, or whatever you want, however you want to say it, option. And it's got 1,020 horsepower. There's the Plaid Plus, which has that, which drops the 0 to 60 time to below 2 seconds, which is obviously insane, but we kind of always knew Teslas were going to do that. They're saying it's the fastest accelerating production car ever. The big thing that's kind of broken the internet a bit is the interior, because they've changed the central screen from portrait to landscape like the Model 3, although you've still got a digital driver's dash, unlike the Model 3 and the Model Y. But the steering wheel is no longer a steering wheel. It's like a yoke you would find in an airliner, in a Boeing airliner, I think. So yeah, it's like a rectangle thing, and it looks horrific, and it looks like it'd be dreadful to use and really terrible. Like, imagine doing a 3-point turn with that steering wheel. It's good.
Yeah, you couldn't learn to drive in one, could you? All the feeding the wheel through and everything wouldn't work.
Yeah, you couldn't shuffle it.
No.
And it's got no indicator stalks. And Elon Musk said, oh yeah, you don't need indicator stalks because the car can guess which way you're going to turn.
Including also putting it into reverse. The car will guess when you want to reverse.
Clearly, as with all of this, it's all a load of nonsense, and lots of the stuff Elon Musk is saying contradicts what Tesla are saying, because it has actually got indicator buttons on the wheel. He just didn't draw attention to that. So
I also love Alex Goy, obviously motoring journalist, I'm sure lots of listeners know, has gone a little bit viral because he has noticed that it looks very similar to a koala bear's face.
Wow, the steering wheel.
Yep.
Interesting.
You can't unsee it. Seriously.
I noticed that when I had a Fiesta last year, the Fiesta ST, the steering wheel and the dials that looked like Roland Rat, I think.
Yes.
I like cars with faces. Lucy, you're a fair bit younger than us two oldies. What do you think of the steering wheel? Do you think it looks peng?
No, I don't like it. I mean, you do say I'm younger, but I am trapped in the mindset of a 50-year-old. So I very much prefer the round steering wheel. It's really annoying because I'm a huge fan of Tesla and I really want a Tesla. So that was a bit disappointing. Do you know if there's a way to spec it with a normal steering wheel?
Oh, what a great question. What a great question, Lucy Brown, because someone has poked through the HTML code on the Tesla configurator and website, and they found an image of the new Model 3 interior with a round steering wheel. So someone's done some digging, and it looks like, yeah, you're probably going to be able to get a round steering wheel. I think they must have always had it in mind to develop it with a round steering wheel, because some countries it's illegal to sell it with steering wheels like that, possibly including the UK. So yeah, I think you'll be able to get it with a round steering wheel, and it will continue to sell very, very well, which is good. It's quite interesting, actually. We never usually talk about top speeds of cars because it's relevant, but and as electric cars especially usually have very low limited top speeds to preserve batteries. The Plaid Plus can do 200 miles an hour, Elon Musk says, with the right tires. I don't know what those right tires are. And it might just be more absolute nonsense coming out of Elon Musk's mouth, but hey, there we go. The infotainment system is basically a games console now as well. It's got, if you're into your techie stuff, apparently from Elon Musk, says it's got 10 teraflops of compute power, which is about as much as the new PlayStation 5 and a bit less than the new Xbox. But none of the big GPU or computer companies have come out and actually said who's powering it. So again, it might be nonsense, but he's saying you can play The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk on it. But who wants to play computer games in a car? It's just weird. Anyway, we've rattled through that in record time. That's the end of the news. Right. Next up is throwing Lucy Brown in the spotlight and firing questions at her. Yeah. So, Lucy, how long have you been at DriveTribe? Because it's quite a long time.
I mean, I'm probably going to struggle on the first question. I've been at DriveTribe since March 2017.
So you are definitely one of the longest serving members of staff, given the chaos that DriveTribe's been through in its gestation. You have kind of basically gone the entire gamut of job roles. From you came in as kind of work experience, didn't you? And now you run the company, which is quite a meteoric rise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't say I run the company. If I did, then DriveTribe would be in pretty bad shape. Yeah, I started off as a social media intern. Actually, no, I started off as a DriveTribe user. I used DriveTribe a fair bit, and I saw an ad for an internship, thought that looked kind of cool, and chose to submit my application and got it.
And you worked in our very first offices in King's Cross, didn't you?
Yeah, everyone at DriveTribe hated that office, but I really liked it. It was a bit small and dingy, and there was rats and a few things like that. But
you've really sold it.
But it was in King's Cross Station, which was an epic place to be. The amount of food options were just great. I loved it. King's Cross was such a nice place. That was my favorite office.
I mean, Rachel's laughing, but that's kind of when I look back at all the offices I've ever worked in, I pretty much judged them on the food options for at lunchtime, because when you work in an office, it's very grindy, and that's what you look forward to. Basically, the second you get in the morning, I used to just start planning what I was going to have for lunch, whether it's a burrito or some reheated pasta from a place that no one liked apart from Lucy, things like that. Yeah, it was interesting. And now basically you are more focused on getting good videos out and helping plan with Mike on the video side of things and social media stuff. You have also taken over the mantle of basically our go-between with Clarkson, Hammond and May. So I just want to kind of talk about some of the moments you've had in your time at DriveTribe with our founders, beloved founders. Yeah.
It's been a bit of a roller coaster. Obviously, when I first met them, I was completely terrified because I was an intern, and then I never expected to ever talk to them again. It wasn't my job to talk to them. But then I smoked at the time, so I sort of had a few chats with James, and we ended up sort of hanging out quite a bit. And then I ended up being the person that he called, and then that sort of happened for all three of them. So I guess that sort of fell into that. I was very scared. I've obviously grown up watching Top Gear, and it was a bit terrifying, especially the first time I met Clarkson. Clarkson is a giant. He is huge. He's really tall, but his voice and his persona is also gigantic. So that was pretty intimidating as an intern. And the first time I met him, he was coming in to the office to hear about our social strategy. And my boss asked me to create that little presentation for him to present to Jeremy, because obviously he's the boss. And then Jeremy arrived. We all sat down in a corner of the office, and my boss threw me under the bus and said, "Go on, Lucy, tell Jeremy about our social strategy." And I had probably been working at DriveTribe for maybe 1.5 months, 2 months.
Wow.
And it was terrifying. But I got through it, and then proceeded to forget about it like you do for anything that's traumatic, and then move forward. But the next time I saw Jeremy was completely out of the blue. We had been in New York. Mike and I were in New York filming the Formula E. And we flew back on the overnight plane, landed at Heathrow about 6 a.m., got to the office at about 6:30. I started offloading all of the rushes and everything that we filmed in New York. And then I got a phone call from Jeremy, which had never happened before, saying, can you come to this pub in Notting Hill in an hour and a half and we can film a video? And at this point, I was exhausted because I cannot sleep on flights, and I was a bit jet lagged from being in New York. And I hadn't had a shower yet or anything. So I was like, okay, yeah. I grabbed my camera. I hadn't even offloaded the rushes from the card yet. I just took a card out, popped it in, got a new battery, hoped it was enough to film the video, rushed to my flat, had a quick shower, and then went to the pub and met up with Clarkson. I still had wet hair at the time. He must have just thought I'd woken up really late or something that day. And we filmed a few videos, a Q&A, and the now infamous Jeremy Clarkson Formula One rant.
Yes, I remember that. There's quite a lot of swearing in that. I love that. And that was just completely out of the blue. Hadn't spoken to him really kind of since that meeting.
Met him once, yeah. And it was terrifying. And then I went home after we finished filming and I passed out because I was very tired. And this is about 2 p.m. And I woke up about 7 p.m. and I had a text from Jeremy, which is, again, my first ever text with him. It was at the start of the chat in iMessage saying, I see you're a bartender now. I was like, that's what? I don't understand what you're on about. And then he sent me a link, and the Daily Mail, like, he'd been papped, and I'd been I'd been papped filming him even. And as I wear, when I'm running audio and camera on my own, I wear a lovely little bum bag. And from the back, that looked like, I guess, like an apron. So, and as my camera is quite small, my body was hiding the camera in the shot that they took of Jeremy. So I was the bartender. Jeremy chats to the bartender while getting served his drink was the headline.
That's amazing.
That's
so it was a very,
good.
very surreal 24 hours.
That is absolutely crazy. And those videos kind of went pretty viral because he did one about cyclists as well, didn't he?
That was a few weeks later. Yeah, he said, I've got an idea, come film me, meet you in Highland Park. And that was very stressful because I arrived and he was sitting there in his Range Rover. He got out, he said, okay, we've got 10 minutes. And I sort of set my camera up and I set the audio up, and then the audio wasn't working. We were using a Zoom and it wasn't working. And he just told me, have you put the batteries in properly? So yes, of course I have. And then I took the batteries out and I put them back in properly. And it wasn't, the batteries weren't in properly, which was really frustrating because it was very embarrassing for me. And then we finished setting up and we started filming, and he had like a tea bag in his mug. And I sort of said, that looks a bit bad. Can you take it out of the cup? Just put it on the floor or something. So he just took it out and just handed it to me, just like staring at me. I was just like, oh, I've pissed him off. But we filmed the video and it went around all right. But yeah, those were huge videos for the DriveTribe channel. And I think most people think that we spent weeks planning them and thinking all these questions, when in reality, they were done in less than an hour with no notice whatsoever. I remember when I got in the Uber to go film him for the F1 video, I just did a @general chat, message everyone in the company, please send me questions for Jeremy.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
And yeah, then shooting him single-handedly, doing video and audio. And it was David Beckham's pub, wasn't it? Wasn't he there to try out David Beckham's pub?
Yeah, it was David Beckham's pub. I think it's because the production office for the Grand Tour is actually nearby in that area. So he sort of had a little lunch break or something and said, oh, okay, I'll do a video for DriveTribe, which was nice of him.
That is so funny. And what about the first time you worked with Hammond?
I'm
Cast your
not.
mind back.
I don't know. I do struggle. I mean, Jeremy, I had a very big sort of memory of the first time I met him. I'm not quite sure the first time I met Richard. I think it was really embarrassingly, we'd just done a competition on DriveTribe, and I really wanted Richard to announce the winner. But obviously I didn't know him or anything like that. So I just asked my boss saying, hey, if I can grab Richard, do you think I could ask him to do a video? And he was like, yeah, sure, good luck, which I thought was a bit odd. And this is when we were in Moorgate, and the Moorgate offices was in sort of a big tall building with loads of different like elevators, and you need your key card to get through doors and stuff. And I saw Richard leaving our office, which I was like, I'd missed my chance really. So I sort of ran after him just as he was getting in the lift, and I played around my card to try and get through the door, and I managed to get through, but it delayed me, and I made the lift just as the doors were shutting. So I annoyed him by sort of stopping the lift. And then I said, "Oh, hi Richard, I'm Lucy. I work in the social media team. We've just done this big competition. I thought it'd be really cool if you could record on your phone the video for the winner." And then just as just before he started talking, the lift opened and like loads of people from the floor below got in. And then he sort of didn't say anything. And then we got downstairs, and then we got out front of the building, and he was like, "Yes, okay, let's do the video now." And if you go on DriveTribe somewhere, there's a video of Richard Hammond in a suit out front of our old offices announcing the winner of a competition we ran. And that's probably the first thing I did with him.
I remember that when we had the office in Moorgate, it was like whenever any of them came into the office, and they all did for board meetings, it was just absolute chaos. And we had to kind of like shepherd them through like secret lifts and everything. Because if you walk down the road with any three of them, you basically get mobbed, especially in central London. So in all your time working with Clarkson, Hammond and May, have you had any moments where you just kind of want the ground to open up and swallow you whole? Things that have just gone quite embarrassingly wrong?
Sometimes, mainly with Hammond, I think, actually. A lot of time we've been filming with him, and I've been in charge of a certain camera, and sometimes say it's overheated and it's turned itself off, and I haven't noticed because I haven't been keeping a good eye on the monitor. And Hammond really doesn't enjoy technical issues at all. In our recent Defender video, we did our final piece of the camera on top of quite a big hill. And we had to walk up the hill, obviously, and Hammond is insanely fit. He jogged up the hill with his dog and had to wait probably 7 minutes for me to catch up because I was just walking with him. In fairness, I had a massive backpack with all the kit, and I was carrying a camera on a Ronin, but I sort of arrived at the top of the hill completely out of breath. It's like, I'm dying. And he's like, "Okay, let's go, let's film." I was like, "Oh, okay, let me just check the audio." And the audio was not working at all. We were using radio mics, and I think something with the height, the static, it was just awful. It would not work. It worked kind of when I was very, very close to him with the receiver, but obviously then I'd been shot. So we tried that a few times with me walking just next to the camera, and it didn't work. And eventually, after about 10 minutes of me panicking, we came up with getting the other person with the camera to film him, and me sort of hiding down the banking of the hill and walking alongside so that I'd be close. And that worked a little bit, but it didn't really work. So we ended up just having to use a directional microphone, which meant the audio was very different for that last piece of camera. And I just wanted to just jump off this hill and just disappear. It was horrible. I hated it so much. Weirdly, that was worse than my more recent issue, which is we just posted a video with Hammond and Oliver, and for some of those shots we used a drone, and we used the drone almost to replace a slider because we didn't have a slider. So we just thought, okay, let's get the drone, fly at a very low height so it's in line with the car, and just have it move left to right, sideways, and things like that. And this didn't actually happen while I was there. I went off with Richard to his house to film some other shots for the video, and we left the crew behind to get the B-roll of the car while Richard wasn't there. And the crew managed to fly the drone into Oliver, and it made quite visible dents. The drone was fine, luckily, but it made quite visible dents in Oliver. And when I got back to the next location with Richard, so Mike came up to me and said, the camera crew, they kind of flew the drone into Oliver. But in a way, we were very lucky because Oliver was right next to Richard's Jag, which he's been restoring all year, and he is very, very in love with, especially the paintwork. It's got the original color, and he's very, very protective of it. So we were quite lucky that it hit Oliver, not the Jag.
I love that that's the best outcome of that situation.
But we spent ages, Mike and I, well, the whole time that we were finishing the video, Mike and I were just sort of on the side, like, how do we tell Richard? We should tell him at the end of the shoot. We shouldn't tell him now in case he gets really angry. And then it got to the end of the shoot and Richard was in a good mood. We'd finished about 3 hours early and we were filming in his local area so he could just go home. And Mike went up to him and said, Richard, I'm so sorry. I need to tell you something. The drone actually flew into Oliver. There's these 3 big dents here. Of course, we'll pay for all the damage and we're so sorry and just invoice us of anything, or we can set it up for it to be repaired. And Richard was just like, that's fine. It's cool. Don't worry about it. And then he left. So we'd been so stressed and terrified all day waiting for this horrendous moment. And it was completely fine. Which was great.
I would have just resigned there and then, I think.
It was horrible, but he was completely fine with it. And it was quite funny because there's part of the video where Richard says that Oliver has got a few sort of nicks and dings in it. But when we were filming that, we couldn't actually film any of the nicks and dings because they were mainly internal, so you couldn't really see anything. But if we'd shot that a bit later, then there'd be some nice big dents to show off on camera.
Some very fresh wounds here on the side. I love that. Yeah, it didn't crash into his very expensively restored Jag, but instead the car that everyone on the internet has fallen in love with.
I was going to say one of the most famous cars probably in the world.
Yeah. probably. Most famous little characterful cars. Cool. Well, that's very interesting. Thank you, Lucy. Just before we wrap this up, going to rattle through, as we do usually, some of the cars what we've been driving. Rachel Hogg, have you driven your Suzuki Swift Sport?
I have driven it for an essential journey to the shops, which is about 2 miles away. I need to go out in a proper drive. I really want to go out and drive. I miss driving. Sorry, that was just like a personal aside.
I mean, it's your job. You are allowed to go and drive and write about it. So that's fine. I've been driving loads of stuff, which actually I might save some of for next week because we've gone on a bit already. But the Bentley Flying Spur V8, the embargo lifted on that this week. I drove it last week. What a car. What a phenomenal thing. I see why Jeremy Clarkson's bought one. It's like a limousine, except when you put it in sport mode, it drives like an RS6 that's actually more fun than an RS6 because it's a bit rear-wheel drivey. A phenomenal thing. And it kind of made me want to talk a little bit about the problem that you have as a motoring journalist, because the world of motoring journalism is pretty staid and pretty serious. And there are lots of journalists who take themselves very, very seriously. It's just driving cars. It's not like, I don't know, heart surgery or something like that. And when you're a car journalist, I always feel that your enthusiasm, you always kind of want to rein it in so you're not seen as being unprofessional. Do you find this, Rachel? Because I'm just like, this is amazing. Like, I want to convey the excitement that I have as a vaguely normal person driving amazing cars. If Joe Bloggs jumped into a Bentley Flying Spur, he would be like, why didn't you tell me this is amazing? Why are you telling me that it's got slightly laggy throttle response?
And yes, it has this 7mm less of travel and blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Yeah, so you'll probably read reviews in performance titles of cars like this, and you might think, oh yeah, I thought that'd be really exciting, and they're just like, yeah, solid 4 stars. Trust me, it is still a bloody brilliant car, and if you're a normal person that doesn't drive fancy cars every day and have to be anal about them, it's phenomenal and exciting. Likewise, the rear-wheel drive Audi R8, I had that in last week, terrifying in the wet. Kind of hated it because it was twitchy and sketchy and it just kicked sideways all the time, and I didn't really enjoy it, to be honest. I kept thinking I wish I was in the 4-wheel drive one because that still moves about, but just not in such a terrifying way. So I'll talk about that possibly in more depth next week, because I'll probably forget to. And I can tell you what I've been up to in my Mini as well. Lucy, have you done any driving lately? You haven't, have you? I shouldn't have put that in there.
No, not really. I drove to our storage unit and back, which is about a 5-mile round trip, and that is it. But I did put the car in sport mode.
Ooh. So you've got a Mini Cooper S, haven't you?
Yep.
What gen is it?
It's an R56.
And have you done any more mods to it lately or anything?
No, I originally started out doing a mods series, I guess, on my YouTube channel in the summer, because what else can you do on a YouTube channel if you know about cars? But it got really rainy and cold in England, so I decided to stop doing that because
funny,
I'd
isn't
rather
it?
film inside.
Where it's warm and not raining or snowing as we've had. But yeah, thank you to everyone who's listened to this. Do go and check out Lucy's YouTube channel. So it's got tons of behind the scenes stuff with Clarkson and Hammond and May, as well as lots of interesting stuff about tech and filming and drones and editing, stuff like that. What's your YouTube channel called?
It is called Lucy at DriveTribe.
There we
Very
go.
imaginative.
Well, mine's called Tim Rody Drive Stuff, so I can't really talk. And Rachel Hogg's is called Rachel Hogg Food Tribe, I believe.
It is.
So yeah, do go and check us all out. Thank you ever so much for watching, listening, and enjoying. And we will be back next week, hopefully with fewer technical issues that you've hopefully not noticed. And yeah, I've been Tim.
I've been Rachel.
And I've been Lucy.
And here's the sexy outro music.
Can we get Lucy to dance now?
Yeah, Lucy, you have to dance this. This bit stays in, by the way. Yeah.
Does that say bad boy?
Oh.
I've never realised that before.
Nor have I. That would be Jonathan just telling me that I'm a bad boy. Am I going to redo this? It is, I can't keep a straight face through this bit. But it's not finished. Nearly finished. And it's finished. Goodbye. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed Lucy's dancing.